A wife called him a stallion, but unfortunately it was not about her husband. Husband's cruel revenge for cheating with a stallion. How did a lifelong commitment descend into such cruelty? What drove this husband's unrelenting vengeance? Let's discover the scandalous details in this shocking true story. I sat at the old wooden table, savoring the rich aroma of my morning coffee. The old house was quiet, except for the soft bird song drifting through the open window. Lost in thought, I replayed the events of the previous night that had shattered my sense of peace. Jolted from my meditation by the piercing cry of a child, memories came flooding back unbidden. Our youngest had just left for college last fall, leaving an empty space that nothing seemed to fill. My wife withdrew, spending hours alone in her studio. I hoped her art would blunt the pain of loneliness. Instead, something else filled the void. Her studio became her refuge, where a stranger's voice now echoed in place of hammer and chisel. Finding her there in the throes of passion broke the silence like a crashing wave. A man I did not know had stolen into our life unseen. Now, in the stillness, questions swirled but offered no answers. How had it come to this after so many years? What dark impulse had drawn her away? And could our bond withstand the trauma? As sunlight stole across the floor, I grasped for meaning where before had been only simplicity and trust. The future loomed as uncertain as the ripples on my trembling coffee. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee awoke me from my dreams each morning. I padded downstairs barefoot, drawn to the scent as if by a siren's song. There I found my dear wife Emma, already pouring herself a mug with nimble fingers. She greeted me with a tired smile and a kiss, dark circles shadowing eyes that still seemed to sparkle. "Another long night, love?" I asked gently, accepting the cup she offered. Emma nodded and sighed, leaning against me as she warmed her hands around her own. "The case just never ends," she murmured into her coffee. "But it will, and then we'll have time for happier things, I promise." I hugged her close, hoping my reassurance could lift some of the weariness from her shoulders, if only for a moment. For now, all we had was this, the simple comfort of companionship over a shared pot of coffee, stealing what peace we could find before the day's demands pulled us once more into its currents. She smiled as she showed me the necklace sitting in its box, a gift she had saved up for weeks to buy. I wanted to see it on her shining in the light. "Only for special days," she reminded with a laugh, but agreed to try it on. The chain glittered against her skin as she asked how it looked. "Beautiful," I said, meaning her smile more than the jewels. Her happiness was what I treasured most. That evening, curled together on the couch, we talked of simple pleasures, a walk in the park, a favorite book, the comfort of quiet moments side by side. Life held more joy in its ordinary gifts when shared with the one who knew your heart. No need for dramatics or grand displays. Here, in the shelter of each other's arms, was all the celebration we required. Our anniversary passed, yet the gift of each day together was one I hoped would never cease its giving. Many relationships face challenges maintaining closeness over time. As lives get busy, it's easy to drift apart. But my wife recognized this risk and courageously voiced her feelings. "We need to find a way to increase our time together," she said. "Not just once in a while, but 2 or 3 times a week." I was stunned by her wisdom and vulnerability. Yet in that moment, my mind was elsewhere. Work had me distracted, struggling to focus on what really matters. I hurried out without my briefcase, intending to grab it later, but in my haste, another task interfered. Only when I arrived at the office did I realize my mistake. Memories from long ago also intruded. I recalled the cat I'd owned as a child, Clarence, and his tragic end. One winter morning, in my drowsy state, I'd started the car without checking for him on the hood. The grinding sound has never left me. It was a grave error that taught me to always be fully present before operating vehicles or machinery. Now, hearing my wife express her valid feelings, I regretted my scattered mind. She deserved my complete attention. From that day forward, I resolved to be more attentive to both my relationships and responsibilities. Though challenges remain, increased awareness helps me better care for those I love. It was a blustery autumn afternoon as I drove down Oak Street, leaves swirling in the gusty wind. Upon arriving home, a foreboding police cruiser sat parked outside my door, dread sinking into the pit of my stomach. Dark thoughts swirled through my mind. Had something befallen my dear wife? Rushing inside, the front door still agape, I searched room to room but found no sign of disruption. Only later did I learn that the officers wished merely to inquire after a neighborhood incident and that all was well within. Relieved of my anxious worries, I fixed a pot of soothing tea to steady my rattled nerves. Meanwhile, across town, the community garden club meeting was in full swing, enthusiastic members bouncing ideas off one another. One spirited suggestion involved a weekend volunteer effort to spruce up the town square park before the autumn festival. As plans took shape, lively debate ensued over design details. By the time the gathering concluded, spirits were high and eager anticipation built for the beautification project to come. Night fell and a restless moon rose overhead as I tried and failed to settle into restful sleep, thoughts still circulating. Seeking clarity, I rose to read by lamplight, immersing in absorbing pages until weariness overtook tension and eyes grew heavy at last. Dawn's rosy fingers drew back the curtains on a new day, and with it, promise of peaceful routine restored. To uncover the truths hidden, guards were called to inspect each room within. While most findings were mundane, within the master bedchamber lay a scene which cut like shards of glass. There, in a tangled heap upon the floor, were signs of an intimacy not meant for other eyes. Yet more grievous still was the lash which cut deepest, the biting words which pierced a husband's heart. "You fail where others succeed," she spat. "Another knows me better than you ever have." Silenced, he stood motionless as waves crashed over him, each syllable like salt in open wounds. Moments passed as he fought to steady trembling hands, to gather fractured thoughts. At last he spoke, voice barely more than a whisper. "Was our love then but an illusion? All these years was I a fool?" No answer came, only the sound of ragged breaths. With care born of practice, he closed the door behind him as he left that place, locking away what once he held most dear. Beyond, new paths awaited, though the road ahead stretched long and lonely as the setting sun. Part of me found it unbelievable, even after witnessing enough to sway a jury. But my wife was 50, and the dolt with whom I had a fleeting romance couldn't have been more than 30, and his physique was rather appealing. It's difficult to fathom that my spouse could compete. I wasn't the most athletic myself, nor was I much of a man. Though couldn't the fellow have pursued a spouse in better condition? I failed to comprehend. I simply failed to comprehend. An eternity seemed to pass, but approximately 90 minutes later, it grew deathly silent. They must have required respite. Suddenly, I heard my wife ask if I brewed coffee. Her admirer offered no response, not a sound from her paramour. Just heard an "oh my goodness" from Emma, and then much hustling and bustling with closets, drawers, and containers being accessed and shut. Sounds of closets, drawers, and containers being accessed and shut. I assumed they aimed to dispose of proof of an encounter. I awoke with a start, uncertain of what had roused me from slumber. Fragments of recollection swirled in my mind like the remnants of a strange dream. Voices drifting up from below called me to investigate. Pulling on my dressing gown, I descended the stairs and entered the kitchen, finding the occupants frozen in surprise. Two figures stood before me, wrapped only in bed linens, their state of undress evident. A woman drew a sharp breath at the sight of an unanticipated witness to their intimate moment. Her companion's expression revealed equal parts shock and shame, though whether directed at me or the revolver now in my hands, I could not say. The pistol was familiar, its well-worn grip a source of comfort through long years of service. But where had its owner left it, and why? Questions turned to the man, who glanced furtively towards where his uniform usually lay. Desperation now creased his brow as options narrowed. "He's not here," I said, hoping to ease the panic growing within him. "What of your weapon?" Memories emerging from the fog offered an answer. It had been confiscated along with other tools by one enforcing new restrictions. Stripping away means of safety or self-determination left only vulnerability. Trembling lips struggled to shape a plea as the man sank to his knees, heedless now of modesty, digging frantically within the tangle of linens scattered across the floor. But what was concealed there could not be found, as other possessions had likewise disappeared into the grip of controlling hands. Only emptiness remained. While Ethan Wilson shrugged off the potential sentence for his actions, deeper concerns weighed on his mind. A former officer accustomed to protecting others, how had it come to this? His long career guiding the lost back onto steadier paths now hung in the balance. Meantime, upstairs, urgent matters demanded attention from the others, leaving Ethan alone with his troubled thoughts. Perhaps in time understanding might emerge from the ashes of this ordeal, though in the moment only uncertainty prevailed. Down the street, a lone worker ensured the construction site remained secure according to orders. Duty required vigilance even in quieter moments. Then again, where exactly had it all gone wrong? A series of small mistakes or deliberate actions, each further complicating the last, had led to this intersection neither wanted to face. For now, all any could do was move forward, learn from errors, and hope opportunities for redemption yet remained. The storm clouds had began to gather on the horizon, a portent of the turmoil that was soon to break. Sergeant Henry Miller stared out the window of the police station, lost in troubled thought, weighing the challenges that lay ahead. He hoped the coming conflict might be resolved through understanding rather than violence, but feared events had progressed too far for reason to hold sway. His memories turned to Uncle Martin, who had always counseled restraint in times of strife. "Tread carefully," Martin would say, "lest haste lead down a path with no return." Henry knew the streets would not remain calm much longer, without leadership and unity of purpose. A knock at the door broke his reverie. It was Officer Leonard, come to discuss their response to the rising tensions. "What's our plan, Sarge?" asked Leonard nervously. Henry sighed, knowing lives depended on his next words. War could be averted, but only if all parties were willing to find common ground and compromise. The future remained unwritten. Through open and honest dialogue, perhaps peace had a chance after all. It was a sunny afternoon as Paula walked along the beach with her father. "Why did this happen?" she thought. "Don't they know how much we care? My precious ones," he said. "Your mother wanted you to have a better life than this. She told me you deserve happiness and a family that provides stability, which we could not give at the time. I know it was difficult for her to leave you in my care. I'm finding contentment where I can these days, despite recent hardships. Life presents challenges, but also moments of peace, if only we open our eyes to see them." She was tinkering with an old radio, hoping to bring music back into our lives. "I had hoped to ask a friend for a ride into town, but his car had been impounded for unpaid fines." "What trouble is this?" Paula cried in dismay. "The local police had seized your friend's vehicle. He has debts to settle, I'm afraid. Minor offenses are often dealt with leniently," the sergeant said. "A warning or small penalty is usually enough. He mentioned, though, feeling an obligation to assist me after past kindnesses." "Don't fret," he assured her. "All will be well in time." Now her tears were quiet. Sadness replaced fear and doubt. Like an owl in the night, she pondered mysteries of the heart. "Now, daughter, let darkness fall and dreams light your way to hope once more. Please keep your composure as difficult truths come to light, though understanding takes time. As distress subsided, words carried wisdom where logic failed. My love, let calm replace confusion. Our bond withstands tests far greater than surface turmoil implies. Together, through patience, clarity emerges like dawn after darkness. Doubt lingers when fear holds sway, yet closeness survives so much more. Trust in what has endured brings peace that passes all understanding. Clarity will come as caring hearts make space to listen without harshness of past pain. Remembering joy found before, light returns to former warmth. With care for each other above all else finds right place in time. Through storms of feeling, your love remains my anchor. In you resides my safe harbor from life's unrest. There are a few matters I neglected to update you on previously. The executive assistant to the company CEO also happens to be your partner's wife, which could complicate your work relationship, while your position may transfer to another branch. For now, your employer is keeping you employed at the original location. The relocation possibility also prompted me to consult my legal advisor. Despite earning less than you, according to them, I am owed child support for a period to assist with related costs during this transition. The attorney calculated the monthly stipend at around $3,000. Most betrayed spouses react with machismo and refuse assistance, but I have chosen a different path. Rather than dwell on past hurts, I plan to spend solitary time healing through hobbies like fishing in the Gulf. The familiar lyrics describe getting away from it all and reflecting by the sea, hoping the difficulties will fade like an unhappy dream. Why had the attorney needed your likeness? She expressed it was to provide to her progenitor, potentially. Maybe to circulate among the officers should they want to initiate irritating you, or maybe to see if any of them still wanted to date. Potentially, it was to see if someone still wanted to date you. At any rate, I granted her an illustration that evidently demonstrates your exceptional skills. You understand? Pictures that evidently demonstrate your skills. I also distributed copies of the recording to your mother and father and to your co-workers. How could you be so cruel, Ryan? No, it wasn't. I wanted everybody to learn. I wanted to let everybody understand. All my social media friends were delighted. Emma barely responded at this time. She barely responded. She just sat on the floor in her bedding, sobbing, shaking her head and mumbling. This can't be transpiring. Come now, time to dress and pack your bags. Your progenitors will be here shortly. The autumn winds whipped around the old farmhouse as the storm clouds rolled in. Bill stoked the fire and gazed out the window, lost in thought about the challenges ahead. Soon Agatha emerged from upstairs, her eyes still puffy and red. Without a word, she sat down and poured herself a cup of tea with unsteady hands. After some time, Agatha broke the heavy silence. "What's to become of us?" she asked softly. Bill sighed, unsure of how to respond. Their future seemed as uncertain as the raging weather outside. Just then, a crack of thunder shook the walls. Agatha jumped at the loud sound. In the flickering firelight, Bill and Agatha spoke for over an hour. Painful truths were revealed as they grappled with tough decisions. Though the rain poured down in torrents, within the warm glow of the home, a glimmer of understanding started to emerge. By the end of their long talk, the clouds in their marriage appeared a little less dark. There was still much to discuss, but for now, a sense of calm had returned. Whatever storms may come, they would face them together. Taking his leave, the affable fellow maintained his courteous custom. As Emma departed through the exit he extended open for her transport. Moreover, reflecting thoughtfully on past interactions, fond associations from times gone by came quickly to mind.